I like to think of jobs to be done as a way of seeing. People want it to be a method, right? They tell me what to do, Jim and Elaine, and they want this to be this method, and then it does one thing at the end. But for me, jobs to be done is really about a mindset. And I think if you adopt jobs to be done as a broader mindset, we can apply it to lots of different things. It's not just about what product should I build or how should I build that product or even what should my marketing campaign be. It could be actually quite broad. And I think we're going to get into some of that application of jobs to be done in our session today on Jobs to be Done Untangled with me, Jim Callback. I'm the author of the Jobs to be Done playbook and co-founder of the Jobs to be Done Toolkit.
Along with me, I'm Elaine Matthias, the other co-founder of the Jobs to be Done Toolkit. I have a couple of quick announcements to go over and then a few just quick instructions for the lay of the land. If you're new to one of our events, then we'll introduce our guest speaker. Just a quick reminder that the Jobs to be Done Toolkit has a couple of resources for learning jobs to be done. The first is our video training course, Foundations of Jobs to be Done. It's about 4 hours of video training, plus a ton of resources that you can use in our work or in your work. And if you're interested in diving even deeper into the foundations, we go through the entire process with you during our mini course. The next one will be held September 14th, 16th, and 18th. So that's 2 hours a day, 6 hours total, and we'll walk you through the entire process of applying jobs to be done in your work. And you can kind of get an understanding of what it looks like from beginning to end. Jim also offers coaching. So if you're interested in having him look at any of your work, please reach out. He would love to give you guidance, give you an audit, just help you sort of stay on track if you're feeling a little bit lost or confused. So you have that option of working with him. And then lastly, our next Untangled will be August 25th. We have Julie Lazarus from Citizen Bank joining us, and I'm really excited to host her. She's a former client. We've done a ton of training with her team in the past, and so I'm excited to hear more about what she's been working on over the past year or so. I'll post a link to register as well as a ton of other resources in the chat towards the end, as well as send a follow-up email with the recording and any of the resources that we mentioned. If you have questions during the chat, during the conversation today, please post them in the chat. I'll queue everything up. Also, if you want to ask your question, come on stage. We love to have people talk to us directly. That's why we host this as a meeting. So it's really easy to just kind of flip on your screen and join the conversation. And Jim, would you like to introduce our guest
Yeah.
speaker?
Yeah. Our guest speaker today, Thoralf Klatt. Guten Tag, Herr Klatt. Yeah.
Guten
Thanks for
Tag.
joining
Wie
us.
geht's?
Yeah. And we go, where did we first meet? I think it was online. You're very active online. You have a lot of energy around jobs to be done. And then I spoke at your group. You run a
Yeah,
group there in Berlin, right?
exactly. Yeah, a meetup.
Why don't you introduce yourself and your relationship
Thank you.
with jobs to
Thank
be done and what you do?
and thanks for mentioning. This is the way we introduce our speakers. We talk about the network connection, how we made the
Yeah.
first connection, and we are building networks, products, and organizations. And these are the three dimensions I'm thinking in. And that's why today we'll actually look into applying jobs to be done in a different
Mhm.
direction, not just to products for the market, but also meeting the needs that we all have as members of an organization, which is the product for us, for as employees and partners. So very interesting mindset or mind shift, if you like that word too, to actually move from what is the product owner, Scrum Master for, from the different accountabilities on, could they both apply jobs to be done? And I had this epiphany when becoming a trainer for Jeff Sutherland in Boston. I thought this is actually building two products at the same time. And it's visual in the lightweight scaling approach he teaches that you are iterating on two things at the same time, right?
Hmm.
And one is 26 times per year, you may have a small improvement in your organization in flight, which may be better than your competition, right? Because if you have at least one improvement per 2 weeks, that's not too bad. So I thought about how I could use AI and jobs to be done discovery also in Scrum Master training. And then it made click, and I said, well, if we know the needs of our employees, colleagues, and partners, we can then better prioritize, focus, align on where do we want to grow the organization to. And now we have
Nice.
AI coming in, which accelerates stuff. But maybe when we accelerate stuff, we do the wrong stuff faster, which
Right.
in the marketplace, we know it is not delivering an effective solution for the market or the customers. But we could do the same on the organizational side. We could change the organization in ways we don't want. And I briefly talked to Elaine, and we thought about which case would be really interesting for your community. And I have also a cliffhanger for the end because I'm going to give you an update in November in my business agility meetup Berlin. We are going to have an update on this very talk. So think about subscribing and logging in. It's free also. And so it's all about a case we had before, which plays in Berlin as a talented startup hub. And we have an incumbent telecom operator that was very keen on building yet more meaningful services. And maybe I should share my screen now, the presentation. Is that okay?
Yeah, I just stopped sharing, so you should be able to share now, Thoralf. Thank
Okay.
you.
So you see the story. It should be this one. Hope it's working. Is it full screen?
There we go. Yep, we're seeing it now.
Awesome.
Thanks so much.
Right.
Yep.
So it's a mobile operator, and they said we would like to have increased data usage, Internet of Things, etc., through our network, but we don't want to build an innovative group in a headquarter, right? We want to build it elsewhere where the talent is, and we want to experiment with new innovative ways of working. What they already had in the headquarter, in this telco operator, they had people knowledgeable about jobs to be done for discovery and product management. What they didn't yet do is apply that to organizational growth and how to understand needs of the people in the headquarter and the newly built startup that we supported them to build. It was a build, operate, transfer engagement. So as a consulting company, a previous employer of mine, a previous employer I worked for, we actually then took the job to build from day one, co-build with them, cooperate, and then transfer, which was more like a meaningful switch, but it was already co-owned by them. The idea was to actually, start up something with a new innovative culture, not being slowed down by the traditional culture in the headquarter. And this is the story today of how can you do this transformation while actually also shifting some operation to a new site. And then later make sure that the new DNA can be harmonized with the traditional way of working and people are not felt left behind in the headquarter. I hope this makes sense to everyone. Otherwise, let me know, put it in chat if you have questions. So we have an overview here, how we apply this to the organizational development as well, discovery of needs. And we also have some explainers of terms. I think you are all familiar with jobs to be done, desired outcomes, which for me is the top thing to measure. Do we actually work towards meaningful outcomes, which we can measure, right? So everything is evidence-based. Whatever iterations you're doing, it's all evidence-based. And we also borrow from something that in the Agile community and the Scrum community we call patterns, which is coming from Berkeley, California. Christopher Alexander, some of you know it, how to build dwellings for humans and maybe also their pets in houses, in villages and cities. How do they get along? And how do we build spaces that are alive and not dead, right? So there's a few principles in a book I will mention. And we want to use the same to organizational development. And this is also it. So this is a new way of transformation with multi-site. And the build, operate, transfer is way old. It comes from civil engineering, when you build streets and those things. or even security, like securing the oil fields of France somewhere in the Middle East, with fences and stuff like that. Also there we had build, operate, transfer, but you can do the same for computer science, software development. So this is starting with alignment in the beginning on the problem. How do we typically use jobs to be done, which will be just very short. We know how to do it, jobs to be done, understanding needs, and then building solutions. But now it's about doing this in an organization, applying it to the organization itself, and then how to make it a good change initiative that is pull-based. So we have a pull-based transformation. No one is being pushed. And we use the same trick, and I want to cite Tony Alwick in a moment. I really like, Jim, that you harmonize all the different dialects of jobs to be done. And your training, the foundation training, self-paced learning is my go-to place. I always recommend. So Tony Alwick, for me, made it clear in his book that you can also have a marketing plan based on jobs to be done, like what kind of releases will be coming out with solutions for certain needs in the future. And I thought, why not use this marketing plan approach also for change management, right? For changing the organization, because everyone wants to understand what are they buying, which features of the new organization we are building and buying into. That's the idea. So having a marketing plan, using it as a communication plan, internal communication. And then in the end, we have a few questions for you to actually help us build more on this topic. So we should definitely get to these 3 questions in the end. And maybe, Elaine, you can give me a signal when I should get to the last slide. The idea of the whole presentation is, because it's an interactive HTML, these days, who likes PowerPoint? No one. So we have HTML5 for interaction. And you can tell me during the presentation if I should zoom in anywhere. Okay, so I'm going to just go to the next slide. This is from today, brand new. Just look at the statement down here. Tony Alwick, this is an email he sent out today telling us that he is now also even considering a little bit more the solution space, which Jim has been doing and your team has been doing a long time. Not just discovery, but also solution, getting the feedback and realizing we have to be aligned on the real outcomes. So that's what also now finally, I think, Tony Alwick is stating here, that this is the North Star for us, the single thing that we always go back to, being aligned on the outcomes we want to achieve, while solutions are changing rapidly these days. Technical solution space is really rapidly innovating, but the needs space doesn't change that quickly. So it's really worth discovering more and going back. This is the problem statement I indicated earlier. So we have a main office which moves slow. We have knowledge about jobs to be done and better discovery. We want to bring those people over to the new site, which is the startup, and which focuses on something new. Also is using Internet of Things and using smartphone apps to actually use data over mobile networks, but for certain interesting applications that people that also are early adopters and, for example, also are concerned about how their animals are performing, in the widest sense. Maybe cows in Scotland and other animals, they want to actually use this kind of data traffic. So this is how we built this organization. And it's always about making sure that we have evidence and everyone is aligned on what's happening. This is a quick overview of how we would normally use jobs to be done with different perspectives, aspects, functional, emotional, social, and life-changing needs for using wireless technology, data traffic, etc. What could be needs that we want to satisfy for an end user. So this was also in place for driving the application being built, but we look more into the organization. And this is what we did together, is building the organization and making sure that we have ideas about the jobs to be done for the people going as subject matter experts to the new organization. They are joining as co-founders of the new site, and they are involved in the hiring of the new talent in the new organization. What are their needs and how do they keep track of the current progress? So here's some details if you want to have a look. What I really liked, and we'll give you this presentation, by the way, you can just download it and open it up in your browser to look at the details if you want to reach out later. Even in Slack, I think we can have a discussion offline in your Slack on the different building blocks here. So running everything in parallel, meaning that we have this headquarter, which wants to eventually also profit from this new innovative company, but we want to build the company, the innovation hub, all by itself. So we're not slowed down by the current ways of working. So we have this dual track, we have regular alignment across sites, and we are basically not handing over in the end as a consultant company. We make everyone involved, and it's basically just a small switch in the end so that they can take over the operations. So this is an idea from a transformation perspective. The organization has the job to be done to deliver with a more innovative approach. And we also make sure that leadership is taken care of from day one. What we also wanted to make sure is that we sustain all these changes and that in the future they can build on this from day one. So we have patterns where we actually, and if you go back to the original, right? I'm just going back. Wait a sec. I need to actually see the slide. I currently just see the Zoom. Oh, okay. Now I can go back. So just for those who are not so much involved with patterns, a named reusable way of working that the team has tried, tested, and written up like a recipe, not a mandate, but a starting point someone else can adapt. So it's wisdom documented in patterns. And here's a library of patterns that we started to compile during the different phases during the transformation. Like a site charter, you can click and take a look and look at this one-page founding document that establishes purpose, decision rights, and the connection back to home base, which is the headquarter, shared before the site opens, authored jointly, and so on. So if you want to look at any of these patterns in detail, let me know. But you also see here that we take care of the leadership positions, like the middle managers, right? That we have clear milestones, that we do diagnosis, which is coming from the Christopher Alexander's Things Alive and Dead space diagnosis, similar to retrospectives, but in a more generic sense. That we have AI in the loop also, but humans are in the lead all the time. That we also look across the sites and that we make sure the whole library for the change is also well documented and finally in the hand of the customer. Yeah, this is the roadmap or marketing plan, if you will, if you want. Let me just close this. So this is showing you the phases, 18 months, and different steps and maturity levels. The hub, the headquarter. So this is the innovation hub, the headquarter, and what we are doing jointly. And the final milestone is transfer complete here. And here are details if you want from the different communication plan details, and also story arcs or storylines for evidence-based measurement, the people involved, how we gather patterns and how we transfer the job. And now it's the time to maybe ask you if you would like to zoom in on any details. Anyone?
Yeah, Thoralf, I'm kind of interested to learn a little bit more about what the pattern transfer looks like. Because to me, that's the real linchpin of change in organizations. It's you have to teach people to know where to go look for knowledge as they're acclimating to a new way of working. And so how does the pattern library kind of drive that behavior change and get them in
Mhm.
there to stay curious?
Right. So patterns are perfect for a complex system because you're not dictating the way of working. You're just giving a direction and some patterns to try and use. It's like being in the library, being in the complex space in Cynefin, for example, and oscillating between complex and complicated. Every time you're building a new iteration, persist it, make it reproducible using test automation. You would put in all the engineering and then go back to your backlog and try something new and start the next sprint. The same for the organization. So when you see that you change the organization in small slices, every change is an experiment, and you're using jobs to be done to know what you want to achieve, right? But what's the desired outcome to say we are successful, it's really done, and we can then sustain that change. And then you document a new initiative. These are like portfolio building blocks of a longer term transformation. So everything that we have here as a high level pattern is documenting certain aspects of the organizational change. And then people are using all these building blocks. Let's say we are in phase 3. We're using the previous building blocks and patterns for the future and adding new ones. And every pattern is written always in a certain format. It talks about the current context, the forces at play, what's the problem, and then how we can actually fight the problem using a solution, a standard solution that people have to adopt to their context, and a resulting context, which is typically an improvement. Does it make sense?
Yes. What are some of the success metrics that you're looking for when people are using the library in their work?
Yeah, cool. Very good. So as an example here, my one of my favorites is the AI involvement. So human should always be in the loop. We have a short explanation here, one-liner. Uh, in every AI assisted output, what the AI generated, what the human decided, demonstrates the agentic working model by doing it, not describing it. So you have to actually apply um, what you wanted to achieve with AI, and in the end, you have a proof point, right? So you're looking at, for example, in this case, the AI anxiety. If people have a certain fraction of reduced AI anxiety, so in this case, it's about organizational change, reducing the fears in the organization. And then we have also um, some storage of some evidence that we have successful AI usage.
Mhm.
So this is an example, measurable desired outcomes. Here are some examples. Reduce reported anxiety, establish a norm that prevents code-written AI outputs from entering the evidence base without attribution, demonstrate the human in the lead working model through artifacts rather than through policy, when not to use and when to use.
And for something like this pattern library, as teams are kicking off new projects or wrapping up projects, um, how are you introducing them or setting the expectation that they should go to this resource throughout the process or throughout their workflows? Do you do any sort, is it included in the kickoff presentations or the kickoff project plan? And do you do any kind of retro at the end?
Yep. So this is included in the evolutionary roadmap. So when you're setting up the plan, let me just go to this one. From the very beginning, you set up the stub of we are going to work with a library of patterns. And finally, when we transfer, there's a stewardship for the library also in the headquarter, so that we actually take over this approach and know that for future hub creations or improvements in the headquarter, we are going to use that library and someone is maintaining it.
Mhm.
As an example, you could take a look later in the details on, wait a sec, where was this? This was on
Oh,
the joint. It's not visible now, but let's see if we have it here. The stewardship, yes, for example, here. Main office takes full governance, made easy because they've been co-stewarded, steward for 10 plus months already. The transfer is formality. So they have already been co-building that library together.
and
I hope this
Brett
makes
has a
sense.
very good question. He's asking, is a pattern a replacement for a more constrained standard operating procedure?
A replacement for a more constrained standard operating procedure. Yes, it is. It's not a top-down approach and a pre-configured waterfallish way to run a
Mhm.
transformation. It's not a waterfall plan. So it's slowly building. This is like an initial blueprint on how you could put this into phases. But every phase here could be changed based on the progress of the previous phase. So we're always reiterating,
Right.
and the library we're building can be very different over time based on what we see in the system, right? So we may be seeing that it will be adopting in a very different way as initially
Mhm.
expected. And then we also will end up with different pattern library. It's not the one that we see here as a high level plan. It can be very different areas, like a story map where we suddenly have a new dynamics on what's in the MVP and beyond, and in different releases. We also have a different library ending up with. That's basically a mirror into the system that we tackled for a few months, and then later it will emerge differently. Make sense?
Y- Yes, I think that was a great example. Brett
Mhm.
references the term quilting, so connecting sections to make a quilt of activities or options that you can use so that everybody is kind of adopting what we would probably refer to as a scalable process.
Hmm.
And that there's some, instead of like it being a standardized, there's just consistency across
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
workflow.
I'd like to just build on this and say, before we want to scale something, we want to make sure it's good. So the approach with experimentation, adaptation, logging the patterns that were useful is very important because we have a finite number of patterns. If we look at anti-patterns all the time, it's an infinite number, so it's really hard to tackle. But patterns, good patterns, are finite, and that's very good for learning and spreading them. It's
Mhm.
called Yokoten in Toyota Production System. The good seeds are given over to others. That's called Yokoten, like Kaizen, and Yokoten is giving the good seeds, and that's learning across the organization. Yes. Are we
I
at
got
time to go next to the final questions, or do you have some immediate questions?
Jim, yeah,
oh
let's hear from Jim briefly and then we'll
oh
jump.
yeah, I could hold off. Do you still have some slides to present, Toralf?
Yeah.
I actually did have a clarifying question before you move on. If you go back to those patterns, it was more of the orange slide there.
Yeah.
Some of
This one.
them look to be very explicitly about jobs to be done themselves. So jobs to be done outcome framing. I'm assuming that if you clicked into there, you would get a pattern on how to apply an outcome framing. But some of the others aren't directly jobs to be done focused. Is that right? Or
That's
are they
correct.
all
That's
kind of
correct.
jobs to be done infused in some way?
No, they all use jobs to be done in the
I
sense of
see.
having evidence-based
Gotcha.
checkpoints. So, like human in the lead, etc. the library governance, a middle manager bridge, like, how do you connect to the middle
Yeah.
managers that don't get lost or feel left out, etc.
Yeah.
And it always uses jobs to be done for discovering the needs and then validating
Gotcha.
evidence. Are we achieving the outcome? And
Gotcha. So the
yeah.
patterns come from a jobs to be done type of inquiry on
Mhm.
what's the need, and then that gets encapsulated as the pattern. But the
Yeah,
pattern itself doesn't necessarily have to be about applying jobs to be done, although some of them appeared that is the case. It is about
it
how you would
is.
apply to.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. I just
Yeah.
wanted that
Let's make sure that
clarification.
applying jobs to be done also
Yeah.
works for organizational
Right,
development,
right.
which I
And
think is
those are patterns. Yeah, that's nice.
not covered.
The other
And
question that I had,
yes, go ahead.
I also
Mhm.
just wanted to kind of point out that my book is called The Jobs to be Done Playbook because
Right.
what I was trying to do is find these small little units of activity and method within the broader Jobs to be Done canon and list those almost as Lego building blocks. In fact, I call them building blocks, right, in my book. But the one thing that I discovered, and then by the way, in chapter 8 of my book, which for me is the most important chapter of my book. Unfortunately, it's at the end, and a lot of people don't read the last chapters in books. I don't know if you like me, like I
The
read the beginning
place,
of a business book and then I just skim the rest of it. But chapter
the
8,
place, yeah,
what I try to do is I create this notion of recipes where you could take a
recipes,
couple
yeah.
of building blocks and put them together. Is there any sense of recipe building out of these that in terms of how you apply them?
Yeah, yeah. There's a strong similarity to your approach with recipes and combining them in pattern languages. So
Mm,
think of pattern languages as a combination of different patterns to form a language.
hmm
And they call it, and interestingly, there's an interesting parallel to AI because generative AI can create new stuff, right? It's building on knowledge that humans trained the AI and then also confirmed it's valid. It sometimes hallucinates, but pattern languages are all about speaking a language with successful patterns and connecting them in meaningful ways. And you see in the pattern books, you do see pattern language graphs where it says in which sequence these patterns are being applied. Here we see a sequence
right.
from left to right, you know,
Uh-huh.
but in the other books, you see, for example, we do a sprint planning and do a daily course correction called
Right.
a daily scrum, and then reflect on both products, right? And
Yeah.
so on. And we should maybe do refinement before and after.
Okay.
So there is a
Gotcha.
sequence and there's some similarities. A quick insight on when you use AI for organizational development, what you can give the AI as an instruction. Think Claude and a project and instruction. Yeah. So you could say you are an organizational developer with a mind shift how AI can support humans while they stay in the lead, like agentic transformation. Be aware of the culture model by Edgar Schein. So culture model on international sites and how you measure
hmm
certain maturity levels in organization. And so AI knows about these things. And guess what coming next? Golden circle. Use why, how, what, the golden circle
hmm
when you communicate. Um, and think about understanding holistic unmet needs, learn from previous transformations, small successes, managing work in progress, known failures, and apply lightweight scaling. And what I mentioned earlier, Christopher Alexander principles. One of them is the piecemeal growth, and the other one is all about diagnosis of what's dead and what's alive. And the book is, I will put it in the chat, the first book in a series of three from 1975, The Oregon Experiment, right? And it's for Center of Environmental Structure. Interesting, I think. So this is stuff
Okay.
that you can give to AI so it helps you. It becomes an
Right.
assistant. You still stay accountable
That's
whenever you use
interesting.
AI.
Yeah. Well, one of
So
the things I
yeah.
found, Toralf, after I wrote the book, I thought I was laying out this great tapestry, to borrow borrow Brett's term there of here are all the possible things you can do with jobs to be done, and you can create these recipes. But then the one question that I got after I published the book is, where do I start? And what I found is that people wanted more guidance, and presenting building blocks and even recipes sometimes isn't enough. They just want to
Mhm.
know, what's the first thing I do, what's the second thing I do, what's the third thing I do. So then
Yeah,
we developed this thing we call the core process. So even though there are all these plays out there, we have reduced it to a single process, because I found if you give people all these options and you can say, build your own path through these, sometimes
true.
that is not only confusing, but can lead to paralysis. And people are like, well, Thoralf, you're presenting me with all these patterns. Where should I begin? Have you seen it? Have you seen that happen?
I have seen it a lot, and it's funny that you mentioned appendix because Jeff Sutherland wrote a book where in the appendix he says,
Mm,
if you are confused even about a simple Scrum
yeah,
guide,
yeah,
how should I start? Build a backlog that has some meaningful order, and
mm,
then next add the second pattern called
mhm,
retrospective, reflect. So how can you improve? Piecemeal
mm,
growth. How can we improve the product and our process? And then you add more patterns step by step. It's exactly what you said. That's the
mm,
guidance, like a recipe in the end of saying which patterns could I try first. Yeah.
mhm.
So lots of similarity here.
Okay.
Quick. I think I'm not sharing anymore. Let me
No,
just
you
Oh,
double
were.
check.
you were, but you just stopped now, so you need to reshare. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I actually shared the right page.
Whoops. We're looking at your meetup.
No, this is not the one. I wanted to share it was opening a new tab. Okay, so I have to share the tabs. I think that's it. No, I think I can just share the whole screen, right?
Should be able to. You should have those options there.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're
So
seeing your drive now. There you go.
And that's the one button. If you have the deck, you can also open the button. This is the November talk where I'm going to talk about more of this thing.
Hmm.
So how we've been using this in other engagements. There will be an update in November on this one. I'd like to quickly go back to this one, and then this is your Slack. I don't have the link connected here, but you have it in
Hmm.
the Zoom chat. And then I also wanted to
Great.
show you another shameless plug, which is about the AI training, which gives to Doctors Without Borders. So we have a training in September 12 and 19, 2 half days. So we iterate. And it's an AI training using jobs to be done and discovery. And we also interview people and understand their needs and feed this into AI. So we actually filter the data. So we have a green box in front of a black box. So we hallucinate less. The
Hmm.
trick to do this, just a quick one, is we use GraphRag, like Teamwork Graph in Atlassian. GraphRag filters the connection between all these objects and insights, how customers switch to a new product, and we use that to get better outcomes with AI. That's the idea. All right. And I think I now have to go back to the deck. So these are the open question. If we still have time, maybe to discuss
Yeah.
them with everyone, with participants. And just pick one, which one you like to discuss first.
I think let's start with the first one, when the company is the constraint, right? And I think this is
Mhm.
playing out a little bit in the chat as well. There's some questions about where leadership fits into this process. And oftentimes leadership is the constraint, right? You're reporting back to your leadership or executive sponsors, and they're asking questions, they're looking for measurement. So how do you use this thinking to, how does, yeah, how, in what instances, are you guys sort of convincing leadership to adopt these top-down approaches? Or
Yeah.
sorry, these bottom-up approaches that come from pattern libraries?
So it is about aligning all and everyone in the teams towards achieving desired outcomes and going in the right direction in a complex system. But even more so for leadership, you always argue about the why first, right? And when you align around the desired outcomes or the unmet needs of employees, in this case, like people in the headquarter who feel left out, or people in the new organization that have no clue what the headquarters is doing, etc. You always think about these needs as well. And the leadership is very keen on making sure that you communicate about achievements, like getting customer needs met and also uh, improving the current stability of the organization, and people are, or if people are happy, if their needs are met. So I think this is very important for leadership. And so they go away from a reporting mode, asking for data, over to are we making any progress on the stakeholder side?
CK, you have a question.
Sure, thank you. This has been great. So you peppered throughout this interesting concept that, the job is transformation for the company. Have you gone so far as mapping out what's the job for the company to distinguish it from what the job is for, say, the customer?
Yeah. So it's very different because when you look at the product strategies for the products we're building, it's relatively clear that we can decide based on data. Is the market overserved, underserved? Do we find a niche or do we go in as a discounter? So it's all also about pricing, finding our position. Like an overserved market, we can still go as a discounter like Lidl, Aldi, or other discounter supermarkets, as an example. We can still make lots of money and become a global company and later become a dominant uh, product selling company. But when you look at, I hope you can follow, when you now look at the organization and the needs of people, right? It's a little bit strange to think about, are we overserving and going down with a price and deliver a lower quality? That doesn't make so much sense. So there's a huge difference there about deciding on a strategy. The strategy here is more about location strategy, like I have certain talent and a certain location. I have a strategy to create a new innovative culture and a new environment. So this is where you see the data that informs your organizational development strategy is like, where can I innovate the fastest, maybe in a new environment, where I'm not held back by brownfield, old traditional ways of working, which can grow in piecemeal fashion, but not as fast at a disruptive new location. So the disruption is happening in the sense of choosing different locations to do different teams which are building new. And then you also want to transfer the knowledge. And the dominant part, I would say, is something like, how can I make sure that my whole company or my holdings or whatever are taking over this DNA to get more innovative also on the traditional sites? Does it make sense?
Yes, thank you.
So this is new ground for me. As you see, this is fairly new to apply it also to organizational development.
Brett's got a question.
Hey,
Yes.
good afternoon here, Klatt. Appreciate it. This has been really interesting. Hopefully, my question, T, if you can put the questions back up because I want to make sure I get the words right.
Yeah,
But
sure.
my question should lead from question one into question two, which is okay, we got change, talk about customers and stuff like that. But part of the change that I see that goes haywire is the culture inside the organization, the blocking and tackling of running the organization, those patterns that are necessary to run the place that are the culture, the inside culture, if you will, of the organization. Because like the HR people aren't out selling and doing cool innovation stuff. They're taking care of the stuff inside the place. The IT team, the team that does stuff that makes the place run, that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the selling per se. You can call them the overhead, whatever you want to call them, but they are certainly part of the culture of the organization and certainly provide an important part of that criteria that needs to be measured for culture change, going to the second question. So how do you account for that in the conversation that you're having over?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I'd love to say let's park that question until November, but you want an answer now. So what we currently have started is to actually look at this Edgar Schein model and different sites, but commonalities also, and seeing certain change and maturity levels of organizations that are independent of local cultures. So this is not easy, but it can be measured. You can see that actually there is also a change in the different organizations or different groups. You particularly mentioned IT, right? So can you tell me about what could be a problem in IT groups that maybe not changing their culture as expected, or?
Well, I would say, for example,
Yeah.
the system you're using to collect data, SharePoint versus something else. I'll just pick something really random, where a decision is made to go to a different direction, but the IT team has in their mind, this is the only way to do it because, well, it's the way, yeah, right.
Yeah.
And or if you wanted something really esoteric, the Google versus Microsoft argument, or something crazy like that. But just the tool sets that you're using are themselves cultural aspects of the organization, particularly if the leadership has one mindset and the technical side has a different mindset. And the patterns are going to be different because the processes or the patterns, the processes that underline the patterns are going to be dependent on, in this case, the technical solutions that drive them, right? People, processes, and management.
Yeah.
So as a knowledge manager, I'm actually trying to figure the balance between the both of those things, saying, I want to do this kind of work. We're going to use these kinds of tools. Does chocolate and peanut butter come together, or is it chocolate and something really bad? So, that's really what I was thinking over.
Yeah. I'm betting that everyone has now a different perspective in this room. My view would be that when IT teams have certain knowledge advantage in certain areas with certain solution stacks, for example, Amazon, Microsoft, or whatever, they may be biased, like an AI may be biased or leadership may be biased. And we have different organizations in different locations. They all have their biases. And I think that's the interesting part where we want to have a true north in outcomes for the people we build the organization for and the customers we are building it for. So if we have a technology stack that is outdated and doesn't grow as quickly as we wanted, maybe we have to start doing spikes or experiments, set-based concurrent design in a different area also. And in organizational development, measure if the interesting stakeholders' needs are really met, or if people are just locally optimizing for their own sake. This would be the perspective I would like to add here.
Great. Yeah, as we're talking, thanks for that, Brett. And that I was going to say, I want to follow Brett's thought a little bit further, but I may not do that, Brett. So if I don't, let me know. But there's this kind of social life of technology. And if we look at jobs to be done as a technology, right, that I think very often we overlook the social life of these things, right, which is the reality of your organization. As soon as you have two or more people that come together, you have different opinions and perspectives and all these other things. And very often, if we look at innovation or other fields like that, like why do innovations fail inside of organizations? It's awful in the social aspect of things. And by social, I mean human beings coming together and trying to, reach a common goal, right? And I love the fact that you're kind of pointing jobs to be done at that problem at a larger level. Is how do we get people to adopt change. And the second observation that I had is that, you know, to some degree, change is a part of the jobs to be done canon, particularly if you look at something like switch interviews, right? What we want to look at is the energy that's around change. What motivates people to change or not? And when we look at that energy, we can very often use the jobs to be done lens to understand it, which I think is what you did. Like when you're trying to get, you know, a culture change, you're actually pointing jobs to be done at that to understand the human energy around change, right? Sorry, I just wanted to say that as we were going. I don't know if that resonates with you, Thoralf, or Brett. I saw you nodding a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Brett wrote it in the chat, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Finale has a good question also about these AI or else cultures that create a lot of competition among teams and a disincentive to collaborate or work together. And so what do you do in organizations where teams are siloed, they're trying to outdo each other, there's this very competitive spirit that actually undermines the betterment of the organization?
Yeah, that's part of the piecemeal growth. So when you know that these problems exist, you can make your life much easier if you just define a pilot, even in a different location, but could also have it isolated in your organization. So you have it been running in with small teams, 2 or 3 teams, start small. When they show some improvements, then you can understand what has made them better. Like when the original Harvard Business Review paper looked at productive teams, they realized they had certain traits. And then the idea is how can you learn from that and maybe bring over the way of working to other teams as well. And that's a change initiative in itself, just in the headquarter as an example, right? It's about having a nucleus of successful ways of working, now also with AI, and then trying to spread the love, you know, and say, communicate. They have certain traits like being more cross-functional. We are more autonomous, you know. We create an environment and trust them to get the job done. All these things that were discovered very early in the manifesto, in the original paper that inspired Scrum before 1993, etc. What I really like about the idea of those frameworks that are just hypotheses of how we could improve is people bring it into life, into production. So 1993, Scrum was not just thought up as a term, as a first method and later a framework and a pattern language. They also built it and made sure that 1 or 2 teams were using it in production to build a real product and see the success of the company, like a medical company. So for me, it's really end-to-end value delivery, also for an organizational approach, showing it works. And that's how I would run all the pilots in the sense of let's see if it improves. It's an MVP basically, right? Monetizable MVP, testing your business model. And in this case, the business model is a better organization. So that leaves out the problem, I think, that you have these separate groups that are competing and don't want to adopt ways of working. Once you have shown a way of working to be better, you can then stepwise try to spread it and have other people look at it or join. That's also the approach of the headquarter versus the hub, that people join and then communicate back what the better working was like. Does it make sense, Aline?
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
I
You have
think so.
to slow me down or stop me when I'm talking too much.
No, that's
It's all
okay.
good. It's all
Let's
good.
do this.
Let's see, we have one question left in the chat before we wrap up for today. Jeff is asking, can you spend a minute explaining life-changing need and how is it distinct from functional, emotional, social?
Oh yeah, that's a good one. I did some work in Boston on billing systems, so I'm also a big fan of payment services and printing bills, etc., for A to B telephony in Northern America, which is very strange because the tariff tables change on a weekly basis on FixNet, I mean. But the fun fact here for me is that I always have different perspectives. I'm just saying that we have different attributes which all support that the customer would more likely pull the product into their lives. So we have at least functional, which is the obvious one, get a direct need met, then emotional social, like social being a curated list of music, right? Which nowadays is not a mixtape, but a Spotify playlist that I'm just sending to someone, which is carefully curated for someone. So that's obviously a social need that are satisfied by a playlist these days. And life-changing need could be something that is not covered by these three dimensions. For example, if you want to have a need met for an executive that cannot grow in the current existing organization, but they have some longer term needs of still growing, not on a plateau, just functionally, of learning new facts and domain knowledge, but in their career, they could maybe create a new site or work for a daughter company, or we acquire another company, and this is where you can find needs. I further want to grow my career for long-term growth in my life, and it will be also a change in my life because I have to relocate, I have to work maybe in a new culture, in a new country, or on Mars, which tell Elon Musk that it doesn't have a magnetic field, so there's no atmosphere ever, never. But this could be life-changing for me. It's just one more category, which increases the likelihood that someone is pulling this way of working or product into their life because it satisfies additional things that I cannot get right now. Does it make sense? I don't know where I had it from. I just got it from someone.
Okay.
And
Yeah, as Elaine said, that kind of maps to what we call aspirational jobs, which are
aspirational.
generally
Yeah.
larger and ongoing and
True.
more about
Yeah.
change and transformation.
Yeah.
In fact, we
Yeah.
call them B jobs. What do you want to be or become? Right? I
Yeah.
want to become something. So we've labeled that category.
True.
It's
Yeah.
I think you're right, Toralf. It's its own category, and we label that
Yeah.
aspirational jobs. So
I
life-changing
also
jobs. That's
use
a
that.
nice way to
So
do it
we,
too.
we
Yeah.
are using the proud homeowner case. We
Right.
use it
Yeah.
for the Rovo workshops right now we're
Right.
building.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and I add, we want Montessori schools in the neighborhood,
Yeah.
and we
Yeah.
want parents to meet also, not just the kids.
Yeah.
And aspirational is really the becoming the proud homeowner.
Right.
That's for me a hierarchical thing.
Yeah.
But this financial needs is another category I wanted to add. So financial needs could be just saying, I have something specific on, is it monetizable? Is it something where I can grow? I'm not intrinsically motivated. I'm just motivated by money or by
Yeah.
saving money.
All right.
Ross, thank you so much for joining us today. This was such a wonderful,
Yeah.
on-target topic, amazing conversation. You brought up a lot of really great points and connected some really complex ideas. So thank you very
Yeah.
much for sharing your thinking with the community. I posted a bunch of links in the chat. Our chats have been so good and active the past couple of months that Jim and I decided to start carrying some of that over to a Slack community. So there's an option to continue the conversation in Slack. I will post all of Thoralf's resources there. We can continue to tackle some of the questions that he posed at the end. I would love to hear from everybody if you have thoughts or feedbacks or experiences with any of the ideas that we discussed today. And please connect with Thoralf and continue the conversation on Slack or LinkedIn.
You find me there. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Thanks for coming.